and welcome to our discussion about remote learning and instruction inside the college classroom. Today we'll be speaking with Ryan Poirier, class of 1996, who is a professor at Strayer University and teaches primarily online. We are also joined by Yong Park, professor of economics here at Connecticut College, and Noel Garrett, dean of academic support and director of the Academic Resource Center, both of whom jumped into online instruction in response to the COVID-19 outbreak. So thank you all for joining us, and I hope we can go around the room now and do some intros of our own. Ryan, would you like to start?
Sure, I'm happy to. Thanks so much, Lucy, for coordinating this and allowing us to have such a great conversation about online learning, particularly as it relates to COVID-19. So it's really fantastic to be here and to hear more about what's going on at the college from an alumni perspective too.
Well, welcome. Yong.
Hi, thanks, Lucy, for hosting this opportunity. My name is Yong Park, and I teach mostly microeconomics and finance courses. And last semester, for the first time, we had an experience in online course, and I love this opportunity to share this experience with other people. Thank you.
And Noel, how about you?
Hi, everyone. Yes, Lucy, thank you for doing all the work to make this happen. I am Noel Garrett. I'm the Dean of Academic Support and the Director of the Academic Resource Center, but I also teach our accounting sequence and our entrepreneurship courses. And so have a little bit of all of it to go on today. So.
Excellent. Well, thank you all, and again, welcome. Today's discussion will focus on the merits of remote instruction as both a full-time and permanent solution to college-level learning, as well as a temporary and more responsive solution to pandemics like the one that we currently face. So Ryan, why don't we start with you, as you've been in this virtual environment for quite some time. Can you talk about what you see as the merits of online instruction as a permanent solution?
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. At Strayer University, we've been teaching online since the 1990s, which is when I graduated from Connecticut College. And I can't even imagine learning online back then. And it's come really far now. The main advantage for anybody with online learning is that you're not limited or confined to a specific space and time. So you can virtually learn from anywhere. And depending on the setup of the class, you can also space it out. So that way you can determine your own schedule for when you're going to learn. Of course, that is a double-edged sword though, right? When you have to be disciplined and learn on your own and figure out your own schedule, that's not always easy for everybody.
Absolutely. Now, Noel and Yong, you transitioned into online instruction and student support out of a response to the pandemic. So obviously a very different situation than that of Ryan's. So maybe you can share with us how you switched gears and redesigned your curriculum in order to support the students in this very new environment.
Yeah, I mean, last semester was not ideal because we had to go online in the middle of a semester, and we effectively had to make a switch during the 2-week spring break. Right? But given the circumstance, I think the college did a wonderful job in preparing the faculty to make a switch and providing really timely and efficient training for the faculty. And also, faculty members actively shared information and tips about the softwares and apps for screen capture and Zooms, and they turned out to be really useful.
I would agree. I'm gonna focus more on the academic support side of things because Yong pretty much speaks for all of us and how we had to turn that around really quickly. But we were able to flip the switch on the ARC immediately, and we got in touch with all of our students to make sure that they knew that we would still be there and ready for our meetings as soon as they came back and started classes. We had converted all of our tutoring to online, and we were able to pretty much keep the entire tutoring population in business. We did see an uptick in need because of some of the things that students were experiencing, like being remote, but we were able to address all those needs. The other thing I think that was really important is, as I said, the student, we have regular meetings with students on on strategies and how they're approaching their coursework. We didn't drop one student through that whole period, which I was really happy with. And so as we go through today, we'll talk a little bit more about how we're going to do some of this going forward remotely.
Excellent. And Youngjin, in your opinion, what were some of the biggest challenges that you and other Connecticut College faculty faced, especially, mid-September or mid-semester rather, you're pivoting in the middle of a semester. What do you feel were some of the challenges that you and your colleagues faced?
I think we had two challenges. The first one was, to keep the students engaged when you teach online. And that's very different from managing a classroom. So that was a new skill that we had to pick up really quickly. And in the process, I think we learned a lot. The second challenge is learning how to read the class. So, you have to learn how to read the class, and you have to pace your instruction accordingly. So you have to look around the classroom and understand whether students are actually getting the material or not. So you have to know how to read the facial expressions of the students and so on. And doing that online was much more difficult. So those two were, I think, the main challenges that we faced.
Understandably. And Noel, in your role as director of the Academic Resource Center, I'm sure that you heard through countless students through this process. So what were some of their biggest challenges during this culture shift? And as a secondary question, are there any new implications at the moment for the Connecticut College Honor Code in this remote space?
Right. So I would say one of the biggest challenges that we heard from students was just sort of consistent access to like the internet and other academic resources that like texts, things like that they might have been relying on using texts that were in the library, and now they don't have access to that. Another big one was motivation. That was probably the biggest. Staying motivated, followed very closely with privacy. With everybody sort of pushed home to do this, that meant that not only did we as a college have to make accommodations to be able to deliver the courses and these resources, but our students had to be able to make accommodations at home when suddenly brothers, sisters, and parents, guardians, whomever, were using all of that bandwidth at the same time. We heard, a lot of students became a little overwhelmed because the way the work had to be parsed out was very different than when they're in a classroom. And so suddenly it felt like there was a lot more work that they had to do. And with what Youngjin was saying as well, that when they're navigating the new classroom as well, it can be difficult, at times. One of the other issues that we saw was with our international students who now were and our students on the West Coast, who were now in these time zones that meant they were either getting up extremely early in the morning for morning classes, or they were staying up all night to be part of the classes. So that was difficult for a lot of them. I would say the last one that I don't know if you would call this a challenge or not, but the college allowed any class to be taken satisfactory, unsatisfactory, and then lowered the grade to a D- for the satisfactory. So that I think actually also guided some students into how much work they were going to put into these classes for the rest of the semester, and for some students that actually got them in trouble. Regarding the honor code, I think that we as a college, if we are gonna have the opportunity of doing remote and online classes going forward, I think we do need to revisit the honor code a little bit, because at least for exams, it's based on the premise that students, while not being proctored per se, for finals, for example, are taking their exams in an exam center where there is a proctor who roams around periodically just to make sure that people are okay. And so there's this idea that, well, somebody could walk by at any moment. There were surprisingly not a whole lot of extra cases, but there were some creative cases, for lack of a better word. So I think we need, to look at how do we do this, or how do we change the focus of the honor code in dealing with in dealing with an online setting. And Ryan will probably look to you at some point, because with Strayer being fully online, how are you doing this?
Yeah,
And
and
that was actually my next question to you, Ryan, is, hearing the obstacles that we've been facing and that, our faculty and staff all face, is this at all similar to what you experience on a daily basis at Strayer?
there are definitely similar trends, but the main difference is that because we teach online all the time, we plan for that and we have time to plan for that. So a colleague of mine, when she was describing what so many faculty across the country went through, her word for it was resilient pedagogy, because it was truly you're being thrown into the situation and you had to figure it out and thrive and really help your students to learn during incredibly adverse circumstances. Whereas my students had signed up for an online class and expected to learn that way, and we designed a course with that in mind. We do handle some things a little bit differently in terms of academic integrity. For example, our math class relies on some of our math classes in accounting and economics. They use software that rely on the amount of time that the student is actually engaged with the software doing problem sets. And so it lends itself to almost a competency-based model where the student has to demonstrate proficiency using certain skills. For our written assignments, though, we use similarity checking software, and I have no idea what the overall percentage is, but it's a never-ending struggle between professors and students to make sure that students are writing things originally, that they're citing sources accurately, and that's something that is a struggle for us too. So I'm sure you all find that at Connecticut College still to this day.
Certainly. So now, as our online instruction veteran in today's discussion, can you share at all about any of the best practices that you have developed with your students or in collaboration with your students, and some ways that you communicate with them to really bring clarity to your messages?
Yeah, so similar to a face-to-face classroom, I'm sure Young Jin experiences this all the time, and Noel, you have to repeat yourself a lot, which seems weird in an online environment, but you have to send the same kind of message through email, maybe posting in a class announcement, and I also text my students. So by reminding them about things using 3 different channels of communication, that definitely helps. The other thing is helping students to develop a regular weekly routine about how to organize their work may sound kind of basic, but when we're thrown in this online environment, especially now, like Noel had shared, and so many college students are at home with so many other family members, there's a lot of other distractions, and it's easy to forget what you have to get done for class. So helping to build in that schedule and helping students to manage their time is something that I do all the time.
That's incredibly helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
So turning then to talking about some of the maybe unforeseen merits to online education, Youngjin and Noel, I think we've all learned a lot during these challenging times. So even in our office, we're starting to learn that a lot can actually be done remotely, even though it's a bit more challenging. We actually can work pretty well. So what do you see as some of the merits to online instruction in this virtual space?
So in my case, what I saw was that there are a type of student who can actually thrive in this online environment. So students who are not as quick as others in understanding the material, but who are more highly motivated and who are more persistent tend to benefit more from online education because they have recorded lectures and recorded class videos, and they can review this. And also, because after making a switch to online courses, we made online quizzes available and also all the problem sets and answers available online. So they were able to review that over and over. So I could see that there was a big change from the midterm exam, which was done in person, and the final exam, which was done online. So I could see that there are a group of students who can actually benefit more from the online education than other students.
Yeah, I would agree. And in the Academic Resource Center, Youngjin, actually, your class came up quite a bit with students who are working with us in that they said that on the more technical aspects, they really appreciated being able to go back and listen to it like 3, 4, 5 times if they had to really get the concept. So I think that the, sort of one of the unforeseen merits of us doing what we did is I think there are a lot of students who actually realized that there are resources out there that they weren't really aware of, that they can now be aware of. And from the academic support side, like you said, Lucy, we've learned that we were able to switch this overnight and be up and running in the next morning with, you know, the schedules, like how are we going to do tutoring, where are we going to do tutoring, when's it going to happen. The other thing is we can expand our hours now. I mean, for me, I've got an hour drive to campus, which is why we've never had Saturday hours. If I don't have to drive that hour but can see students on Saturday when they can meet, I'm happy to do that. You know, it's so I think that it's going to allow us to sort of tweak our service in a way that that will make it more amenable to students.
Excellent. So I think that this goes out to the full group. Maybe Ryan, we can start with you, but a few questions just as we round out this discussion. Would it be possible for you to share any kind of successful or creative teaching methods that you've seen others use or that you've perhaps used yourself? Or are there any really standout stories from your students that have really benefited from this online space?
Yes,
Perfect.
especially at the beginning of the term. So our term started almost at the beginning of April. And for many students during that moment, it was a relief to go back to school. It provided, you know, something away from everything else that they could kind of get lost in and focus in, and that actually helped a lot of students. So that's definitely something that was a success for myself and our students. And in terms of teaching tips, one of the things that I've had a lot of success with is I offer a 1-question quiz that's only available every 24 hours, Monday through Friday. And I do that to give the students something that's new each day that gives them a little bit of content. And it's a combination of things. So it's a quiz with a standard question and multiple choice, but I also do a video intro to it and video feedback. And I try to make the questions really lighthearted and funny as a way to motivate and engage the students. And so I do get some compliments on that. Some of them are really cheesy, but that sometimes works too. So that's one of the things that I do to help my students stay motivated, stay engaged, and to provide new content throughout the term.
That's really fun. Thank you. And Young-Jin, how about you?
Yeah, in my case, you know, last semester, I learned how useful the tablet is in making the class feel a little bit more synchronous and also interactive. So I personally got hooked to the use of the tablet. So I'm using the tablet all the time now. So that's kind of interesting. And right now, actually, I'm going through another training for the summer semester. And I'm learning a lot of new things that I didn't know last semester. So for example, I used the recorded video, but now I learned how to insert quiz in the recorded video so that, you know, I can end the recorded video with a quiz. And also, in case of Zoom, I learned how to do a live polling in Zoom. So I can actually, when I do a class, I can do a quick polling. Obviously, I have to prepare the polling question, but I think it's going to be a really useful way of making the class more interactive.
Absolutely.
Young-Jin, just to let you know, I actually use that feature all the time.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it keeps students really engaged, and they don't zone out.
Yeah, and also I can add, you know, really cheesy polling too.
I would say that from my perspective, from a teaching perspective, just the myriad of ways that you can engage students in a setting like this, to sort of get them to turn on their video instead of sitting there behind the video. You know, just sort of making it, we're going to do round robin through this problem. And it was quite interesting because the students who used to sit in the back of the class were now the ones who were like most engaged in doing this, which really shocked me. And then doing some cheesy stuff. Yeah, I think on the king of cheese. But Yongjin, I'm going to want to talk to you about how do you do the polling within Zoom.
Oh, sure.
That'll be part 2 of the video.
Yeah.
But that is really all that we wanted to discuss today. So thank you all so much, Ryan, Yongjin, Noel, for joining us in this discussion and making the shift to, and continuing, for your sake, Ryan, online teaching and learning. So your insights were eye-opening, and I really appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation with us and the rest of our Camel community. So thank you.
Thank you, Lucy.
Thanks, Lucy.
Thank you so much.